So, Ed, I have to ask the question, why should we be recycling spark plugs?
Well, we should be recycling spark plugs for a lot of reasons. One of the main reasons is to take the pressure off of mining for certain elements that are used in manufacturing spark plugs. A lot of steel and nickel, and there's copper in the spark plugs. There's precious metals, platinum, iridium, that go into the manufacture of spark plugs today. We really need to return these to the manufacturing environment instead of throwing them away, letting them end up in either landfill or lost to the steel making process. Precious metals would be lost as an example. We don't really want to see that happen. You've got hundreds of millions of dollars worth of iridium and platinum that go into the manufacture of spark plugs on an annual basis. And if we can recycle them annually, then we potentially can harvest those strategic metals and reintroduce them into the manufacturing cycle. That's the main reason. The secondary reason is there's an economic benefit to it. Third reason is it lowers the carbon footprint for primary mining of those metals. And those are all just super valid reasons.
Right. So let me ask you, you brought up the precious metals, you spoke about iridium and platinum. How many ounces of iridium are being used specifically for the manufacturing of the spark plug?
Well, in 2022, we saw worldwide about 48,000 troy ounces of iridium going to the manufacture of spark plugs. From the latest data that we have, well, you figure that at $5,000 a troy ounce, the cost that the manufacturer pays for this element, that's about a $240 million of iridium that goes into spark plugs. And let's not forget also that there's platinum that goes into the spark plugs as well. There's another 104,000 ounces of platinum in 22 that went into manufacture of spark plugs. At current market price, we're looking at about $95 million worth of platinum.
Wow.
That went in between the two. It's a significant amount of metal. If you do that year after year after year, it really adds up. You get a 10-year run, that's a 10x.
Right.
And that's fitted out there on the, as we call it, the car park, all the vehicles that are on the road today worldwide.
So at the mine, how many ounces of iridium are mined annually?
Oh, well, it was higher a couple of years ago. I think a couple of years ago we were looking at about 8.5 tons. I think we're probably slipped below 7 tons now. It's dropping.
Right, because they have to go really deep to be able to mine that. Right? The iridium?
If I remember correctly, there's only a small handful of mines in South Africa that actually has quantities of iridium, and they're down pretty deep. They're down about a mile, and they're getting costlier every year.
Right.
And I understand that there's some closures coming in that sector, and we could see some significant curtailment in mine production of iridium.
So that makes the spark plug recycling pretty crucial for the upcoming hydrogen economy that we've been hearing about a lot lately.
That's right.
And the use of the iridium.
Well, the iridium is used in the cracking of water to produce the hydrogen, and they use it as a metal oxide on the surface of titanium anodes. And the number of anodes that are projected to be manufactured and consumed over the next 5 to 10 years is astronomically ramping up.
So what you're saying is the demand is going to far exceed the actual amount that can be mined annually at the mine then?
It could. Yeah, it could. If we don't actually get into the repurposing of some of the iridium. It's funny, the iridium in other manufacturing operations is small amounts consumed and the majority is recycled in a closed loop system. So it goes into this process, comes out of that process, gets remanufactured, goes right back into the same process. So it's a closed loop. So there's really not any extra available iridium outside of other industrial applications. So this iridium for these PEM electrolyzers has to come from somewhere, and we believe that we can put a pretty good dent in it worldwide if we are able to begin recycling the iridium from the spent spark plugs that are out there.
Right. So I have to ask, based on what you've done your research on, how many spark plugs are out there globally?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a hard number. I know that 630 million were manufactured last year, and it's projected to rise through 2035 to a billion.
What was that? A billion?
A billion.
So it's increasing.
Right.
Wow.
And the reason it's increasing is because there's a greater demand for the hybrids, which are a small internal combustion engine vehicle with a battery electric. And so there'll be many more of those on the road in the next, 17 years, 16 years, something like that. And so I know the number of spark plugs will be increasing. But if you just look at 630 million manufactured last year that we have data on, 2022, and we make an assumption that there's 10 years worth of cars on the road. Well, that's a 10x.
That is a 10x.
Right? But the reality is there's more than 10 years worth of cars on the road right now.
Definitely.
It's 15 to 20 years.
Right, because people are hanging on
currently
to their vehicles longer just
So
because of economics.
It could possibly be much larger than that here in the next few years.
So as far as the auto recyclers go, this is another value item that they could be
It's one more add-on.
collecting and,
That's right.
recycling.
And getting paid for.
So let me ask, who is recycling spark plugs in North America?
Well, we are. Noble 6 is recycling spark plugs. We recycle them with a patented robotic system, high speed. In North America, there isn't anyone else.
Why is that?
The labor costs are too high. It's just prohibitive. Now, if you go outside of the industrialized nations and you look to cheap labor, there's opportunity, say, in China, to employ people to cut them by hand, but that's not an industrial process.
No.
And
you can't get through material.
How are you going to get through
volume?
You're talking about some serious amount of individual pieces that need to be cut.
Right.
I don't know how you're going to do that with just labor.
Yeah, that's a good point.